Time. Hello, everyone. This is a presentation about Archipelago, a digital objects repository architecture built on Drupal. My name is Diego Pino Navarro. I'm from Chile, South America. I moved to New York City 5 years ago from a very tiny town by a volcano, by a lake, to this big, huge city. I'm a senior software architect. My title is Assistant Director for Digital Strategy. And I've been working with computers and coding forever, basically. And I'm going to speak about this thing that I've been working for 2 years already. And there's a link here to the slides, a tiny URL, so you can follow up. There are many links inside the slides. You probably want to open that. There's also a document with the specs and features for people that are interested in testing this. That's my Twitter handle, and that's my email. I'm one of the rare persons that actually answers every email, so please feel free to reach out. And I'm getting started. I'm not watching the chat right now because I have this slides maximized, but happy to stop anytime. And probably someone will let me know in some internal back channels, probably Slack. So the shape of this presentation, I'm thinking basically of having 15 minutes, maybe 18 minutes of slides, some background and talking, maybe some dad jokes. Then 10 minutes of showing live features. I want to show you a few archipelagos. I think theory is good, but you probably want to see what's happening there and how we do things. And then at least 5 minutes for QA and feedback in anything you want to speak about. That doesn't mean that you have to wait until the end to make the questions. You can just keep on making them. You can just chat. And if you feel I'm talking too much, which I'm very famous for, please let me know and I will stop. So the main question is what is Archipelago, right? Why am I actually here? So Archipelago is a digital object repository architecture. And that means many things, really. So I'm going to actually dissect this definition into some other points. So Archipelago is an idea, actually, with a meaningful name. And actually, the name will be explained to the idea. It's software that extends and builds on Drupal 8, 9, and 10, and deeply. It's a deployment strategy. It's a way of deploying the software with configurations and other things so people can get started. It's a caring community, an evolving one that started 2 years ago, and we have more and more people interested, asking, contributing, documenting, and thinking about the use cases. And it's also a long-term sustainable plan. I will say this last element, it's a bit more complicated to explain, but when we started 2 years ago, we only had the idea and a piece of software. And as we have been evolving and we got more interest, the long-term sustainable plan has become a concrete plan that is intersecting the community, the deployment strategy, the software, and also the idea. And we have at least 5 years to go in terms of how we're funding this project, how we're pushing certain values and also certain ideas to build a better community, a caring community, and also how we're building this roadmap that is generated through community feedback. So to start with the first element, of course, here, the idea, right? So the idea itself comes from a reaction to a need, right? And needs are normally domain-driven, right? Just software can solve many needs, or sometimes none. And our domain is libraries, museums, archive, research, and data. So it's probably not the typical domain that you will see in many other Drupal sites, but it's also intersectional to that. So this idea, actually, this domain, right, has a very atomic need, which is something named the digital object. The digital object is something quite similar to a content in a CMS system, right? It's a digital representation of a thing, right? It can be a real physical analog thing, or it can be also a digital thing, right? And basically, it's an aggregation of data, metadata, so data about the data, and binary streams, fancy name for files. Right? So in our communities, in our domain, this digital object had this shape with this tiny eyes there, as you're seeing since 2008, right? And basically, this aggregation was a very tight aggregation of different elements. What you're seeing there is a Fedora Commons digital object. Fedora Commons is a repository system, a backend system, right? And these digital objects have like, and still have, a PID, which is like a persistent unique identifier. They have object properties. They have like these data streams about metadata, right? In Dublin Core and other things. They have relationships between these objects, and also there's like appendices there, which are files, right? And they're very strict. They have like a very strict structure. So you will guess, right? A Drupal node can represent a digital object. It's a container. So they need to solve, and I can go home. Good, but partially. So the big challenge for us here is actually in the metadata. It's not only the container, it's how we are like resolving this thing about the aboutness, the story we're telling, the details of the thing that we're actually describing. So what's with metadata actually? As you see, this is like moving faster than me. Many shapes and possibly hierarchical, deeply nested. Metadata can be like described by many standards and schemas, very strict schemas. It can be like represented via many different serializations, XML, JSON, JSON-LD, even text. And it might be not totally clear during design. So one of the qualities and particularities of metadata is that it will evolve, and sometimes it will evolve and change faster than code. And it's also quite intimate. So it's close to the creator's identity, to that need, to that subdomain, to that domain, right? And normally metadata, because people have been like classifying and explaining things in libraries and museums for way longer than computers exist, have already existing workflows and ways of doing that. And especially important here for us is that our content creators, which we name catalogers, archivists, metadata professionals, know way more than we developers. And we made mistakes in the past where we thought, okay, we developers can make the decisions for you, use our system, here are the boxes, put your stuff inside the boxes. Well, the stuff sometimes didn't fit in the boxes. If you already know metadata, you don't need to press that link there, but there's like a Wikidata entity there that has metadata, and it's the Drupal Wikidata entity. So popular metadata schemas. So you know like what our domain right now is using. We have mods XML. It's like a description schema from the Library of Congress in the US, Dublin Core, a more simple one that is like used for like sharing data between repositories, Darwin Core for biodiversity, BibFrame, Finding Aids, EAD, and 2 different versions, schema.org, very popular in Google, EDM, Europeana data model for like a full like cultural heritage project in Europe, VR Core, IIIF presentations, GeoJSON, etc., etc., etc. You see, there are many different ones and different serializations. So let's see if we solve this. A Drupal node with many fields can represent metadata. Need solved, and I can go again home. So the question is really, maybe, like how many fields do I need? Who decides which ones? Which schemas do we want to represent via these fields? How many schemas can we represent in a single bundle with the fields? What happens if these schemas are evolving? What if you need like multiple representations for the same? And what do you do with linked data when you like your fields, your data has like not only like a value, has also URLs that are connecting to other things? So, for example, mods in version 3.6, and there's like a version 3.5 and a version 3.7, has 108 XML elements. If you just like take the elements like atomically, that's a lot of Drupal fields for a single representation. But the problem is a bit deeper because those elements can be combined and they can exist in different hierarchies. So actually, if you start combining all the possibilities, the number of fields that you need to represent a single mods document as a content is quite huge. An example of that is like when we're using Solr indexing for like a mods record, you can end with like 400 and something Solr fields because it's flattened, right? So now imagine that you have 7 million nodes, and that number is not arbitrary. There are repositories with 7 million or more nodes. And the owner really needs to add a few extra fields to a few of those. And now you have also this idea that not everything is the same thing. So you have books that are different to manuscripts, and you have rare books that are different to books, and you have audiobooks that are different to books. And now you're like schema, your hard-coded, hard-worked schema that you're like trying to build into the system starts to feel very restrictive. So this is self-quoting myself. It's not like I'm Caesar in Rome, but for 20 years, I'm actually old. I thought that every data modeling problem could be solved via SQL. I wrote my first CMS when I was like 18 years old, and everything was SQL in MySQL, and I could do many left joins, many. Happens that when I started working with cultural heritage, previously I was working with gene sequencing, I figured out that not everything can be actually represented via SQL. I'm not saying it's not a valid solution. I'm just saying it's one of the tools you have in your toolbox, not the only one. So after all this like preamble, right, this is finally the idea. What we want here is to allow the shape of this metadata to be defined by the creator's needs. Right? We know by experience and by the use cases and by working with repositories that metadata is plastic, it's evolving. It has actually its own life, and we want to honor that reality. So deeper into the idea, what it means basically is that what we're trying to do here is remove hard-coded data models as much as possible from the software. That's kind of hard because we're removing certain decisions that are very easy to make as software developers, and we're bringing them to the outside, which also means giving a lot of more tooling, right? We want to give these users, archivists, librarians, the tools to decide based on their own expertise. These people we work with are experts in their domains. Basically, they know very well a rare book. They know very well a sculpture. They know the books. They know the cataloging. They know better than us. And this actually leads to the name, actually, finally. So Archipelago, we think that actually each institution using this, right, can be like an island, right? They have their own realities, their own way of doing things, their own workflows. And our software is just like a mean of navigating these many islands. It's the water in between, the currents, the tides, the cohesion, the squids, the dolphins, and everything in between. So I always use the same doodles, sorry, I really didn't have time to make new ones, but I think this is like kind of very descriptive about what we're trying to do. There are like two different paradigms here on like data modeling. The left one, which is like easier for us software developers, right, is the canned food metadata paradigm in this case, or content paradigm, right? We're making decisions, we're cooking the data for you, it has a shape, it has like a distinctive taste, and you know you will always get this thing here, right, with fried mods. Our new approach here, because Drupal is awesome, right, is to change the idea of like a single end result through the cooking analogy. We have ingredients, your data, right? Many different ingredients, and you have recipes. It happens that Drupal has a very good recipe system inside that is meant for HTML, that can be used for anything, which is like the quick templating system. Hello, Symfony. And what you get with this like idea that you have like raw ingredients and recipes is that you can really produce, if you have the right way of storing your things in the fridge, right? And a good way of writing recipes, basically any output. Worst case scenario, you will always cook things that taste like refried mods. But as you grow your system, you get better at recipes, you decide which ingredients you want to use, and you move forward. So finally to the software, probably you are like waiting for, right? Archipelago software that extends and builds on Drupal. And basically, it's a single field, a smart, flexible field named the strawberry field. There's a longer story about what we name it, the strawberry field. It comes from like the song of the Beatles, right? It's like nothing is real, and I could sing it here, but I wrote a note for myself to not sing. Everything that I'm going to explain here has links there. You can see the code. We're very GitHub-based. We're a bit on the edge of the community. We're like moving to be better integrated. But the strawberry field basically is like the core of our system. So what does this like strawberry field, SPF short, it really does? Something extremely simple. It's just like a JSON blob. You store your JSON, your metadata, everything you need in all the hierarchies into this blob. And that's really not something new, right? It's just like a field, it's text, you're putting stuff inside. It's kind of like the body of a content, right? Instead of HTML, it's JSON. But This field is smart. So it has a plugin system that allows us to like fetch and extract and expose JSON keys and values as native Drupal field properties. So you can add via this plugin system new ways of extracting from your hierarchical data, flat data to the outside. And the moment you attach one of the strawberry fields, any machine name, to a bundle, the system, Archipelago, starts treating this new node, right, as a digital object with all the services that we provide. So like new events, subscribers, logic, computed fields, JSON API integration, search API integration starts happening. So there's also not like a fixed bundle. Basically, you can have like 2 bundles. We only provide 2 bundles to describe all the things you need, museums or libraries, but you can build your own, right? But there's not like nothing in the code that tells you they need to be named like this or they need to have these fields. That means you can also add normal Drupal fields, right? SQL-based. And also it mediates with file storage and provides a background processor for long-running things based on React PHP. There are many other services, but it's kind of boring for you right now. Okay, so you have a way of storing this weird metadata, right, in very complicated hierarchies, but you really need a way of like allowing people to put the metadata there. Nobody wants to really write JSON manually. So what we did is like extend and integrate the awesome web forms module to use web forms as strawberry field widgets, right? Core Drupal. And that allows us to give control and power back to the user. They can build their own web forms, right? There's no restriction on that. And that will basically be a handler write the JSON for you, right? And we provided also a lot of custom linked data and complex elements of the web forms, right? We have linked open data reconciliations, Wikidata, Library of Congress, VF, OpenStreetMaps, and other strange things. Okay, so now we have the storage, the way of putting data, but people want to see the things, right? And I think this is also kind of core and very interesting for like our needs here. The format strawberry field, the third module, right? What it does, it allows you to take this JSON as data that is like pushed into a Twig template. And Twig templates are core, you know them, right? The main difference here is that Twig templates become like primary citizens of this like ecosystem. So there's like an entity, a self-rendering entity, a self-validating entity that holds a Twig template. And that can be used to transform this JSON into any schema on the fly. It has like all the caching capabilities. It can be exposed as endpoints, metadata endpoints like APIs. And it can also interact with a set of formatters that we provide for 3D images, video, audio, books, AAAF. I will speak about AAAF a lot here. Metadata casting, right? Like transforming your things into other things, web archives, panorama tours, etc. Basically, we're using also Drupal ingredients to build this ecosystem, right? We provide also 2 extra modules. Hopefully, I'm not running out of time yet. That help us like scale this. The AMI, which is like a tabular UI UX batch-driven importer that binds to Google Sheets or CSV files, and you can just like build per row objects. And you can ingest 1,000 objects at the same time. That also has like a search and replace system using VBO and actions. Since everything is stored in JSON, like find and replace can use like JSON patching, but also simply text replacements. And finally, the strawberry runners, because not everything can happen in real time. So sometimes you really need to like process things on the background. And the strawberry runners is a system that allows us to like have a plugin system where you say, okay, run this against a digital object, and then on the output, run this other thing, and it's hierarchical, and you drag and drop, and you can run things on your binary systems or other stuff, right? And we use this, for example, to generate new files, new JSON, HOCR, which is like OCR extraction, text extraction from images, and then push things back into the search API. I made this tiny tool here that I will explain actually live, but it's kind of like the whole life of a digital object, right? A single bundle type of thing, right? Digital object with a single strawberry field, the web form fills the stuff, the files get uploaded, new subscribers read the new events, everything gets enriched, and finally you get like this digital object, which has like a URL, has like access endpoints, has many formatters, and has like a way of reading the media through something named Cantaloupe, which is like a media server. Okay, I think that's kind of like a theory. Finally, this is something you don't want to like deploy manually. You will probably want to do it. Probably you ever seen beautiful themes in Drupal that look perfectly and you deploy them and then you notice that you actually have to set up many blocks to make it look the same. We really wanted to avoid that. So from the start, Archipelago Dockerized, right? Which is like 800 days ago, 2 years and 4 months probably. And we have like these different containers. Some of them are like custom. Some of them are like existing ones with just like custom configurations. We're using Nginx with a servbot, MySQL 8, PHP 7.4 FPM with Composer 2, Solar 8 with a special plugin, so we can do highlights on images directly. All our storage is mediated via Minio. Minio is like an open source, compatible S3 storage server that can also talk as like a gateway to other storage. We actually have tested live swapping of backends from Amazon to Azure without any problems. Cantaloupe AAAF media server, which deals with all the image derivatives. So you have like a very huge image and it generates thumbnails and other things in real time. And of course, a Drupal 8 and 9 deployment configuration and skeleton, so you can get started. Everything is well documented there. It takes you like between 15 and 20 minutes to get started. And we also have like recently a contribution from Pedro Cambra, which allows you to also use DDEF to deploy this. So you can like do this locally. And most important, there's a caring community behind this, right? So there's like libraries, collections, museums, colleges, our own Metro staff, metadata catalogers, and vendors, lurkers, and other people around helping, asking, using. It's very small still, right? But it's caring and it's dedicated and very proactive. We haven't really like found a way, and maybe we can like get suggestions to make a community grow faster than actually the software behind that, and that's okay, right? But we also have seen that this community has gotten attached to the idea and the use cases, and that makes us very happy, right? And it will grow organically. So we have recently deployed, like last year, 28 different archipelagos. We have done workshops, tutorials, presentations, GitHub, forums, and Slack, and emails a lot. Okay, live showcase. Before I do that, I'm going to just like show another one, which is the thank you. I started this software because I really wanted to prove that certain things could be done in a certain way. But as we move forward, we got like more interest and more developers, and our staff grew larger. Those are the people that have been helped us to move forward, right? And we also have like past developers that are no longer with us, but that contributed a lot of this. And yeah, thank you to all these people. Okay, so can you still hear me? Yes, good. Okay, I'm just going to quickly browse through the chat to see if anyone is having questions. Okay, I'm going to do a very quick live preview because we're probably running out of time, and I told you I speak too much, but I want to show you a bit like how Archipelago works. So I'm going to share here. Share. Okay, stop sharing that. And I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to share this full application window, which will show you myself many times. Can you all see this repository here? I'm going to swap here. Okay, thank you. Archipelago NYC is a test repository. It has been running for 2 years without breaking, without being hacked. No? Okay, let me start again. Share screen, application window, this one, share. No, okay, I'm going to try now with a tab, maybe. Tab. Yes, tab is working. Can you see that? Yes. Excellent. Okay, so again, this is like a test Archipelago NYC. I told you we have like 28. I'm just going to show you like in general a bit of functionality. Okay, so what we're seeing here is like I'm logged in as a demo user, Metadata Pro. role. And this is like a search result, right? This is solar. I'm showing here many different type of assets. We have like a Drupal Dog here. We have a book. We have some other books. We have images and other things. We have faceting that is coming from this like JSON, right? And I'm just going to actually go into this Drupal Dog first. So this tiny Drupal Dog here is one of my dogs, right? As you can see here, and like very quickly, you have like a viewer in the center where you can like zoom in, puppy eyes. You have link data for the elements that actually go to Library of Congress or Wikidata, and you can search against these other things. You have a metadata display here down there with all the metadata, and you have here a map, right? So the first interesting thing here to notice is that all these different blocks are being fed by the single strawberry field with its own raw data, right? And it's a single SQL query. So this is very fast. It's just like getting a big chunk of data. And what's inside that strawberry field is this data here. As you can see, we have here JSON, right? Very nice, not so nice, but it's JSON, right? And you notice we have like type, df, and other things, right? And we also have information that will normally not go inside the same field, which is like image information. So strawberry field also mediates and catches and keeps data in between about the files that are being attached to the digital object. It extracts EXIF information, so you can see that like GPS, right, and other things. It does something named pronoun extraction, which is like a bit deeper than MIME types. The same JPEG can have like multiple different encodings, right? So like pronoun goes into the signature of the file itself, and you have like some identity information here, and you have link data, right? You have here like creators and other things, and deep hierarchical. You have provenance. You will also keep track how this JSON was created, right? And et cetera, et cetera. So this is not very fun. This can also be hidden for end users. I'm logged in, right? But I'm going to show you actually how everything works here. So if I press edit, I have this thing here. I press edit descriptive metadata. And this now loads a web form as a primary widget for everything and adding things. And you will notice that I have like many elements here, right? I can create new things. I'm going to just go over here. I'm going to create here a corporate creator. I'm going to type here library. Sorry, I'm very good. Okay, library. Okay, New Zealand, just to go for something, right? And the creator, the role here is going to be contributor. You see, I'm getting link data. This is like something that Archipelago provides internally, right? I move to the next step and have here like institutional owners. I have collection membership inside the same JSON. Basically, entity references are being tracked inside this, and I have also write statements. And these forms can be like customized by the end user and the admins, right? The way they want. And because you also have like form modes, you can have like many different ones, right? I can just jump here and you will see more entities, right? You can like fill up docs and Wikidata agents and Yeti, right? I have like the candidate family, right? And you can add here addresses. So I'm going to share my address with you so you can like visit me. And that's not the one. West 8th Street, New York City. Let me see if it searches. Okay, that's my street. It's actually a building. You see that? And I'm pressing here, and now I'm getting latitude, longitude, display names, and et cetera, right? And I just go attach files, right? And I just save my metadata, and I can change from draft to published, and I save this. Okay, and now everything changed here, right? And I have like a new contributor, and I have this other stuff. So what's really happening here, right? And you see, like I changed also like the map, so we can see where I live in the map. There. Let me log out here for a tiny second and log in as an admin user. Admin, login. Okay, so first, let me go here to content. You'll notice that in content, which is like a typical Drupal instance, we have metadata displays. Metadata displays are actually quick templates. So the one that's driving the display, this object description here, is like a quick template built into if I press edit, right, and I can actually select here Dog, Drupal Dog, right, I can preview, right? So this is like passing the JSON strawberry field from this entity into the trick template and rendering this out. I can see a native output. There you go. This is like the way it will look, right? And it's also doing HTML validation, which is kind of cool. Tag footer invalid in HTML4. 5 is like permitted, but still we show that, right? Okay, so this is HTML. Let's go a bit deeper. A AAAF manifest or schema.org or JSON. Let's start with this one. Okay, edit. I'm going to select the same dog here, the Drupal Dog. Show preview. Okay, this is generating now a AAAF manifest, right? And this is JSON. So this can feed any of the other viewers that we just saw, right? And actually, let me show you here a few other things. And tiny second, I'm going to go back to content. I'm going to log out so you can see this, admin log out. I'm going to search again. And let me see if I have my docs here. Dog, Drupal Dog, okay. So if I type here /metadata /AAAF manifest version 2 /default.json LD, bam. Real-time generated metadata and a schema, right, from the data we have in a single strawberry field, right? This applies to anything you want. You can select this names and what you're going to expose as APIs, right? And it also drives viewers like this one, or like this one, right? A book. And you see we have a book here, and this book, for example, has some extra functionality. Like I'm going to search for section here. Okay, and you see I can just go to section, and I'm highlighting the elements that have section. So HOCR, that happens automatically when you ingest. Funny is this is like a single PDF. So the AAAF server is generating individual images for the PDF, and then Solar is driving for a special data source entity all the search, right? Are you still there? Okay, I'm going back because I think I'm like already on time, but I want to show you a few tiny other things that are interesting. Archipelago allows you to like select all the internals of the JSON, right? And this is kind of extremely cool for me to show. So, you know, it's like a single JSON blob, right? That you can expose to the search API through something we named the JSON JSON key name providers. It's like a plugin system. So I go here, right? And this plugin system, right? I can add a new one. It's kind of like a fetch query element that is like connected to the field itself, to the code, and allows me to like get data from that to the outside. And we have like a few different ones. For example, this one can deal with like entity references. So we'll just go into the JSON and say, okay, this field here has a number 1, but that number 1 is actually a node, load it and expose it to the search API, right? This one can actually extract the focal length EXIF. And if I press here, this here is actually a JMS path, which is like a query system for JSON, right? And this is exposed internally as ICE image EXIF focal length. This is extremely performant because Drupal would never execute this until you actually access the property of the field. So it's core, right? And when do you need to access this? Via indexing in Solar. So if I go here to search and metadata and I go to my Solar 8, the name here is 7 because of the configuration, but it's 8.8. I go to fields and I'm going to add a new field, right, to my search engine. Oh, sorry, go back here. Fields, am I here still? Okay, fields, add field, good. And I'm going to search here for my strawberry field, which is like has a tiny strawberry there. I'm going to press the plus element. Okay, and then quickly you will see that this field, which is just JSON, has all these different subfields, right? And most of this are provided by a JSON-LD special schema.org field providers, like data provider. But other ones, like this one here, are provided by that thing that we just showed you, right? And I have more stuff here. So I can just go down and now I have like an entity reference and I can press plus and can keep on adding things. How does this differ from actually having multiple hundreds of fields? First, no overhead or loading, a single SQL query, which is just like a big blob of text, right? But also the fact that you can have your things prepared before you actually have the data. So this things that are able to like query and extract data from JSON can exist before the data exists. And if the data is not found, they'll return an empty. So you can prepare your schemas and your data needed, right, up front, and you can keep on evolving. There are many other things here, right? I can go forever, but I'm going to show you, instead of this, actually a few wonderful functionalities. Tiny second, I'm going to copy this here. Okay, another plugin that is kind of interesting. This is another archipelago. This archipelago here is a web archiving archipelago. And I'm going to go to one of these web archives. Let me see, this one, okay. So this plugin that we built, right, and integrated actually, we didn't build like the logic, right, can load a work file and make a full work file. Is like a way of like archiving a website. You harvest the website, you package it together, right, and you can then now, through this, replay the website inside, preserving your website, right? So this mixes then like the idea of like metadata, but also navigating a site that maybe doesn't even exist anymore, right? And we can also Solr index this, right? And you have here all the data inside that was harvested, right? And it's playing in real time. And why it's playing in real time? Because we also built a range query system. So you can like, the system here can just go and say, I want for this gigabyte size work file, get only the last few bytes, read the index, things move to another part, and you see it's just like playing the thing, right? Another interesting use case. Let me copy another one here so we don't lose more time. Panoramas. So this is like an aggregation using another web form element that we built that allows you to like build via the web form itself, panorama tours. So it's using multiple different panoramas and allowing you to add hotspots and connect them together. There you go. And you move from one place to another, and you can see information, and you go to the other place, etc. Also, everything inside a single strawberry field. And another very good thing to show finally before I leave you alone is this one here. Okay, there's like a collaboration with a university, and this repository has the following quality. And I'm going to show you here this one. I'm going to filter here by Gothic Revival architecture. Okay, going to this one. You see the images here are kind of like very zoomable, right? This is driving directly TIFF files. This is the size of the thing, right? These TIFF files are 200 megabytes each one, and there's no derivative generation. So the IIIF server serves via the transform JSON as a IIIF manifest, all these different things, and we generate caching on the fly, and people can just like use a single file to generate everything. So if you do search here, also the thumbnails are generated on the fly from the original image, right? So that's all I have to share right now because I'm taking all your time. I'm going to go back to my slides or just to my face. I don't know what's better. Can you still hear me? Okay, good. First, thank you for like staying so long. I'm going to like start with answering questions here, but feel free to like follow up with anything. And if you want to also speak and say something, I can just like give you like access to that. Yes, so EXIF and pronoun extraction detection is natively. I'm going here for the questions, right? What we have is like some post processors, and since everything is Dockerized, the PHP Docker container has a lot of like tooling to do that, including HOCR extraction, and we call those binaries and we extract that. But it's like it's built into that. Dates. So we have multiple fields built into this web form element system. And one of them is like first the EDTF system. EDTF is like the extended datetime format, where you can use like even like uncertainties and other things. And there's like a library that connects to that allows us to transform those dates that are uncertain into certain things and then index them into Solr. Yes, I can share a lot of like URLs publicly. I think there's like a full list probably in the features and specs document that I shared in the slides at the beginning. And I can also go for that. We have a few new archipelagos. We have already some colleges working, and we have a few migrations happening this year. The largest one is the Newark Public Library, which is like 400,000 objects or something like that. But we also have a few West Coast projects happening. Yes, so let me share quickly my screen. That's actually interesting. So the system handles file folder hierarchy. The system can handle relationships between any type of object, and you can define the relationships. It's like things like is member of or is part of or whatever. You define those, and then you can just connect via views or Solr directly your objects. But also Archipelago takes charge of the files that you're saving and generates a lot of like, let's say like storage decisions for you, right? One of the goals that we had was like, okay, maybe you like Archipelago now, maybe you don't like it in 2 years. What if we give your data easily access and you can take it home, right? So if I can share my screen again quickly, if you're okay with that, maybe you're very tired already. A menu browser. Can you see the menu browser? Okay, so if you can see this, I'm using here Menu on one of the servers as a gateway to S3. So I have like many buckets here for different Archipelago hostings, right? This Archipelago test here, right, contains the DrupalIF cache, everything in S3, and the media is actually a storage for Drupal. So because we're intermediate with the files, we also organize the files based on checksums here, and we just move the files into different places, right? You see we have here 2 different files, right, that have like the same checksum, interestingly, the warc and a gset one. Okay, let me go back to this one. And media. So what we also do is we deposit the files, sorry, the objects, the nodes as files. So you can build decoupled, static to build pages. So there's like this geo storage system where each of these UIDs is a node UID. We use a lot of UIDs. And then we deposit the full node when you create that as a JSON. It's like a full entity dump. And also the metadata Drupal agnostically as a JSON file. That means you can just like use the hierarchies, right? And all the files are in that and build like a statically built website and exhibit and other things. Hopefully that actually answers that. Security, accessibility concerns with certain embeds. I will say not security because since all the files are being mediated via either the DrupalIF server or our own file access endpoints are private, not public, right? We have a lot of control. And right now in the roadmap, it's like to build a stricter, better ACL system. So you can not only like give for access to certain files, but also like filter metadata out. But yes, accessibility is a thing, especially when you're thinking about interactions via DrupalIF, right? Where there's like a lot of JavaScript happening, and also interactions through the web archives. We cannot ensure that the things we're archiving from other sites have accessibility, right? So it's a bit more complicated than that. And for sure, we need to work. But I have to say this, it's not a perfect system, right? It's like any system, we're evolving, we're learning, right? But I think for 2 years on the road, this has been like very rewarding on one side, and also has proved that there's ways of doing things without too many fields for certain use cases, right? And you can like use Drupal to its full extent and Symfony to make things working. Yes, Drupal doesn't support natively. So another thing that we did is like during the first 6 months planning session, we did like a full curation of modules that we wanted to support with the deployment strategy. So you can run Archipelago without S3 and it will just like mimic the file hierarchy. But if you install it the way we provide with the settings and everything, we provide the S3FS module like configure and set up, right? And it's a very stable model. We have like used it extensively with S3 directly and via Minio. And because Minio is also like a very extremely fast, it's written Go server, and can deal with any other backends, but serve natively S3, you don't have to like stick with a single storage provider. So Minio can actually provide just like a gateway for your file system, right? Or to Azure, or to Wasabi, or to S3, right? Or any other, or like I can't remember right now, but it's like another version of like storage. And then since we keep track of the files internally, Archipelago, you just like swap the backend and nothing changes on the metadata. All the repositories and all the GitHub things that we have for deployment are in the slides if you want to follow on that. And yes, I think people are starting to leave. Gosh, I'm staying along here. Okay, so if you have, thank you for that. If you have any other questions, like follow-ups or anything that you want to like see or test, we also have like public archipelagos we can access. Again, deploying locally takes like 15 minutes. All the links are there. Contributions are welcome. Critics are welcome. Community hopefully will grow. If not, it's still like very caring community. And our plan is like to go Drupal 10 and when Drupal 11 exists, and also we bark more of the community, right? Give more back. So thank you very much. And yeah, that's all.